beauties! So I wanted to do another video about foster care. Originally, this week was going to be all about the process of getting certified, all the different classes and paperwork and stuff like that. But I'm going to put that on hold for a week or two because I got a very sweet message from a girl that is anxiously awaiting her adoption home study and wanted to know what to expect. So I started talking and all of a sudden I heard this little scratching at the door, and it's William. He found a little bag of coins, which is what he's playing with. Hello. Anyways, so when I received her message and I read through it, I was reminded of how I felt the week leading up to our home study. It was very intimidating, the idea of having someone come to our house and judging it, basically, going through everything. I didn't know how intense it was going to be. So before I get into that though, I want to do a bit of a disclaimer. When I was working, I'm now a stay-at-home mom, I was an environmental inspector. So what I would do was I would show up unannounced at businesses, plants, industry, kind of anywhere, and I would just show up and I would have their permit and I would kind of, basically, they had to drop everything and I would go through all their paperwork, check all of their equipment, check all of their production values, their safety plan, everything to make sure that environmentally they were in compliance with the rules and the permit and all the regulations. Bye-bye, I'll see you later. Go get Daddy. Oh, you gonna close my door too? Thank you. Bye-bye. So I wasn't the only inspector in the office. There was, I don't know, half a dozen of us. And the thing is that sometimes we would, I'm getting to a point. Sometimes we would switch companies and we'd have to look back at the previous inspector's notes and pictures and stuff. And I realized that even though we were all kind of looking for the same thing, each of us put a priority and an emphasis on a different area. One person was a real stickler for safety, the other one was a real stickler for paperwork and having all the maintenance logs done. Another person was just obsessed with taking pictures of everything, right? So even though we all kind of did the same job and we were looking for the same thing, we did it in a different way. That being said, my home study might be completely different from your home study, especially if we live in a different state or it's for a different purpose. So my home study was completed in Oregon for the purpose of general foster care. All right, so I will tell you what I went through, and what I'm going to ask is if you have been through a home study and your experience was different or there's something that stuck out that you were surprised they looked for, leave it in a comment down below, and this can kind of be a resource for prospective parents or, you know, prospective foster care providers that want to know what to expect, and they can learn from our experience, our group experience, okay? Okay, so I was surprised that when she arrived for our home study, it really wasn't about the home. It was more, I felt, about the people that lived in it. So she came on, I think 3, maybe 4 different occasions, and each time we kind of did a different style of interview. So the first visit, she sat down with us at our dining room table, me and my husband. William was down for a nap, Hannah was watching a TV show. So it was just kind of an adult conversation. We sat down at the dining room table and we discussed, you know, how many children we wanted to care for, what ages we were interested in, sibling groups, if there was any developmental issues we felt comfortable with. The discussion centered around why we wanted to do it and who we wanted to care for. So that was kind of her first thing that she wanted to get out of the way, and it was a long conversation. The second time she came, we talked a lot about ourselves. She interviewed us together about our relationship, and so Chris and I kind of dubbed it the drug, sex, and rock and roll conversation. So she wanted to talk about drug and alcohol use as a child, an adolescent, a teenager, a college student, kind of young adult, and now present. She also wanted to discuss other family members in our life that might, you know, like stop by the house, whether they have a drug and alcohol issue. So exposure was a big thing for her. She wanted to know what we've been exposed to and what potentially a child would be exposed to when they're in our care. So that was a big conversation. There was also a kind of a sex conversation. She wanted to know all about our early relationships and then how our relationship was today, kind of that progression as well. And so that was a very personal conversation, very in-depth. Neither Chris and I have a history of sexual abuse. We've never experienced that. And so the conversation wasn't like a trigger for us, but I could see how it could be for somebody. So that's maybe something to just kind of be aware of. Let's see, what else did she discuss? Oh, we were also asked to talk about each other. Like what, I was asked what Chris's strengths and weaknesses were, kind of how I saw our relationship, what our roles were within the relationship, and then Chris was asked the same questions. We were also interviewed separately. She talked with me about the roles of my parents as a young child, you know, a preteen, a teenager, and then now as an adult, how they played a role in my life, how I was disciplined as a child, kind of how stable my home life was, how all of those things, kind of again, what my exposure was and what my childhood was like. And then she asked Chris the same questions. So throughout the conversation, she wanted to get kind of a detailed, all-encompassing look at what our childhood was like, and how that kind of made us the person we are today, which I think is wonderful. I think having a strong understanding of who the providers are and maybe what their triggers are, what their experiences have been, I think that that's great and something that they should focus on. Now, our children are young. She did like kind of chat around with Hannah so she could get an idea, I think kind of developmentally where she was and kind of maybe what age ranges would work well for our family. And then William, at this time, he wasn't even 1 year old. This was in February, so he was 11 months old. So she just kind of made sure that he was safe and well cared for, but obviously she didn't interview him. So then after the conversations and the interviews and everything were out of the way, she actually took a look at our home. She noted the front exterior of our home when she arrived. She kind of looked at the driveway and the front yard and where we're located on the street and everything. And then she took a look at our backyard, checked the structure of our porch. We have a swing set in our backyard. She wanted to know if it was tied down. We have a garden and a chicken coop. She wanted to know, you know, kind of how, if any dangers that those would pose to children that we were aware of. Now in the kitchen, she was concerned whether or not the cabinets underneath the sink were locked, and we do. We have kind of like one of those where you have to have a heavy duty magnet to open them up. And those are always locked because William always wants to get into the dishwasher detergent, which is super bad. So those are always locked, and that wasn't an issue. She wanted to make sure that knives were up high, which they are because we have small children in the house. And I think that was about it. I mean, really, they want to make sure that all the surfaces are clean, that where you're preparing food is safe, and, you know, if you have a clean kitchen, then it is. So our kitchen was clean, the refrigerator was clean, so there wasn't any issues in the kitchen. Now in the bathroom, again, she wanted to make sure that the cabinet under the sink where we keep any potential cleaners and stuff like that, that was all closed and locked up. She wanted to know about our hot water heater, whether the upper temperature was regulated, which it is. Our pediatrician had already talked to us about that, so we knew to limit, I think it's like, I want to say 140 degrees for some reason, but don't quote me. And that's just a thing that you can set on your hot water heater so that bath water doesn't scald a child. She talked to us real briefly about like bathroom privacy when you have a child in your care, which is something I will talk more about in like a safety-based video, but that was just kind of mentioned. And then we looked at the bedrooms. Now our setup is that we have kind of a girl's room where Hannah is sleeping, and we have a boy's room where William is sleeping, and she wanted to make sure that there was adequate space for additional beds, an additional child, that there was a closet that could, you know, hold all the clothes, and that it was clean, it was safe, there wasn't any mildew. You know, just, I don't know, general cleanliness, but she didn't like go through the drawers, she didn't like look through our closet or anything weird like that. Now in our linen closet, she wanted to make sure we had a first aid kit that was easily labeled, and we actually do. I didn't know she was going to be looking for that, but I'm glad that I had that. It's right at eye level, it says first aid, and I actually have like basic first aid and then kind of like extended first aid. I have them in two separate things, so if you just need like a band-aid, you grab that one. If it's kind of a big deal, you grab both of them. We also have a fire extinguisher in the front bathroom, in the hall linen closet, and in our master bedroom. We also have a small one in our master bathroom. I don't know why we have so many. Probably because we have small kids, but we do. We also have one in the kitchen for like grease fires. So we have we have 5 fire extinguishers of varying sizes on the upper floor, and then we have a big one, and the big one is what she wanted to see. She didn't want the this is so dumb. She didn't want the ones that are like this big. She wanted the ones that were like this big around, a big one, and that one is located right in the garage. So once she saw that one, she checked it off her list. She also looked for fire extinguishers and a carbon monoxide detector in the hallway, upstairs and downstairs. She wanted them, they had to be within so many feet of the bedrooms. So she just checked that off real quick. She looked at our master bedroom, and again, she talked about like bedroom privacy. And then she looked at our master bath and made sure that, again, the cabinet was locked. But really, children aren't in our bedroom. I mean, William is when he nurses, but for the most part, Chris and I kind of regained the privacy of our master bedroom now that William's sleeping in his own room. So, and when we told her that, we kind of said, like, this is kind of our sanctuary where we go. That, I think, made her really happy that we didn't have kind of an open door policy with kids in our room. Downstairs in the den, she looked real quickly at our play area. I think she was very pleased to see that we had a nice play area. So we have a wine cellar downstairs, and that's also where we store one of our firearms. And so that is locked, no worries. And the door of the wine cellar has a lock. It actually has two locks. One up very high and one down low, because we don't want Hannah and William getting in there because we have some expensive bottles of wine. So that was already in place. But again, we took care of that. We also showed her where all the guns, where the hunting rifle and stuff was. My husband hunts. He's hunted his entire life. So we do have hunting rifles in the house, and he has them all locked and stored and everything. So he showed her where they were, and she was fine with the way that they were put up. Oh, I don't like that I just mentioned guns in this video, but I think that it's just a reality. If you have guns in your house, obviously you have to have them stored properly in order to pass a home study. So that's something that you should be mindful of. In our laundry room, we have front-loading washers that are side by side, and I had a bottle of detergent on top of the washer, and she was like, that needs to be moved up to a high shelf. So I kind of thought that was funny. Now every time I'm doing the laundry and I pour the soap in there and I set it in the machine, I'm like, So I move it up. I have a tall shelf, and now I just have all of my detergents, bleaches, cleaners, stuff, stain removers. They're all up on a high shelf. I showed her this room, my craft room, which is where I craft and make videos, and we got again into the discussion, the fact that I'm a blogger and a vlogger and stuff like that. And so she liked that this room was kind of set apart from the house, and a kid wouldn't have really any reason to be in here. Not that there's anything bad, but with crafting and stuff, there's lots of little pieces, glitter and stuff, scissors and bypass trimmers. There are some things that could pose a danger to children, and this room does not have a lock on it by any means, but a child would not be down here unsupervised because it's kind of in its own little area of the house. Now in the garage, Chris actually did get into some trouble, and we had to rearrange a little bit. We had to make sure that all of our like hand tool, like we have a circular saw and all that kind of stuff, that they were up high away from children. We have a table saw, and that just had to be unplugged. He had just used it for a project and didn't unplug it, so had to make sure that that was unplugged. We have a shelf that is where we put all of our paint, and all the paint had to be moved up above like 5 feet. So we just moved it over to a different cabinet that's up high. And any like weed killer, that kind of cleaning chemical, that sort of stuff, all had to be up on a very high shelf. And we actually just moved it to a cabinet that we could lock. So we did have to move some things around in the garage, and because of that she came out a second time and did another walkthrough, and everything was fine. So we really didn't have to change many things. We had to move around the detergent, we had to move around paint and small like hand tools and stuff, and then I think that was it. I don't think there was really anything else. The home study itself was a lot to prepare for, just because I think I went overboard. I cleaned like every surface of the house, and it was good because it was like spring cleaning time anyways. It was time to like get in there and clean the baseboards and stuff, but that's ultimately what she was not looking for. She wanted to see a house that was full of love, first and foremost, and that was relatively clean, you know, a clean kitchen, clean bathrooms. She wanted to know that the rooms that the children slept in were safe and, you know, clean and roomy enough. She also wanted to make sure that there wasn't any like, I want to call them like Mr. Yuck issues. You know those Mr. Yuck stickers that you put on bottles, and it's like the, you know, the kind of 911 number for poison control? Any items that you would put that Mr. Yuck sticker on, she wanted to make sure that they were up and out of the way. And, you know, we don't ever really let our children in the garage unsupervised, they would never think to get into paint, I don't think, but never say never. And she wanted them up in a cabinet. And then the last part of our home study was a few months later because she was slow. I'll admit, our certifier was very slow. She sent us the report, and it had all of our information, our parents' information, who our references were. It had a description of like a physical description of our house, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, how it was laid out. Then she talked about what the bedrooms were like for the kids. And then from talking with us, there was kind of a score sheet on the back, and it was like we had to discuss like what we fight about and stuff. That was another thing that we talked about in the interviews. And so there was kind of this score sheet on the back that were like, what are their triggers, I guess, in a way. And like for Chris and I, it was like division of chores. Like, you know, we bicker about that. That's one thing we bicker about. So we scored like a moderate on that. And then I think we scored a moderate on finances, because first and foremost, who does not argue about money? So, and we're a one income household. So money is something that we just have to be mindful of. And we fully disclose that it's not like we are by no means living paycheck to paycheck. It's not an issue that is severe by any means, but we're also not like extremely affluent. So she put us, of those three choices, she put us in the moderate category. So then we were given the chance to read over the home study, which again, I was just expecting to be about the house, and really it was about the family. So there was like paragraphs about our personalities and our motivation and goals for the future, that sort of thing. She talked about our children that are currently in the house, and about how Hannah is very excited about this process, that sort of thing. So the home study was actually like quite a few pages. There was lots of paragraphs written about us, and then a few checklists. So I think hopefully that answers your question. So again, my huge takeaway was I was expecting my house to be evaluated, and instead it was my family and home. It was the home that was evaluated. So I hope that helps. Again, if you have had a home study and your experience was different, you know, maybe your certifier like dug through your drawers or asked like a crazy personal question that you still remember being like thrown off guard about, leave it down in a comment below. Not only could it be educational to people that are wanting to know what to expect on a home study, but it's gonna be a good chuckle for those of us that have been there too. Also, if you have a vlog topic suggestion about an upcoming foster care series video, again, I post these on Friday, feel free to leave that in a comment down below. I want to talk about what you want to hear about, and I know that when I was going through this process, I really wanted to know what to expect during a home study. So hopefully this video answers some of those questions, and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks so much for watching. Bye. When I first read the comment, I gotta admit, I was like a little offended. I was a little offended. Sometimes when you read something, you read it through your filter and not in the way that the person intended it. So I'm going to just assume that the person really was wondering, honestly, why foster when you can adopt?